Good evening, everyone. I hope you guys are having a good Thursday, and I have kind of been just lackluster on this whole big storm system coming through. I'm sure you probably have already heard something about it by now. Just it makes you feel under the weather and kind of procrastinating, being a little lazy on the fact of not actually wanting to get on and make a video about it. Well, it's just kind of a mix of why I haven't posted much about it, but obviously, here it is. It's going to be impacting us later in the day tomorrow through our day on Saturday before it kind of departs out of here for Sunday. And it's going to be a quite impactful system, not necessarily up here in terms of storms and stuff, but particularly down south where they could see some pretty significant severe weather. But right now across our area, they did issue a winter storm watch for the far western portions of Minnesota, stretching basically the entire way across. Does not include Stearns County, St. Cloud, doesn't include Wilmer or Kaneohe County either. So it's fairly close to the St. Cloud region in central Minnesota, but I'm not expecting a whole lot of snow here. Taking a look at what the National Weather Service has, a majority of the snow is going to be falling across the northern parts of Minnesota, western parts of Minnesota, and it's going to taper off pretty quickly as it works its way towards central Minnesota, just due to the fact that there's going to be a quite significant amount of warm air sitting around, and temps really aren't going to change over till majority into our day on Saturday. And by that point, a good chunk of this storm system is already going to be up and out of here. So any sort of snow that we really get from the system is going to be pretty minuscule, maybe an inch at most here in St. Cloud. I don't think that much of it's going to stick because our highs for our day tomorrow are going to be well into the 70s. So very warm. Our ground's already starting to unthaw for the most part. So snow is going to have a pretty difficult time being able to accumulate there on the ground. And we could see even a little bit of ice accumulation across the far western parts of Minnesota where that snow is falling. And we're going to see some windier conditions there just due to how strong that low pressure center is, which means that we could be seeing some blizzard-like conditions. So if you are traveling up there, just something just to remain aware of as that system moves through. But not only that, but we have our first severe weather potential of the 2025 season here across Minnesota. Marginal 1 out of 5 risk here in this dark green does include the St. Cloud area down to the Twin Cities Metro. A 2 out of 5 slight risk for southern Minnesota, Rochester, Owatonna, Albert Lee, down that area just right before you reach the Hennepin County area. And then as you head into Iowa, you see a marginal or enhanced risk 3 out of 5. And there's even farther south than that, there's a moderate risk 4 out of 5. Where they're expecting even more severe weather. So majority of this is looking to be severe weather just with strong winds and maybe a little bit of hail. The tornado threat looks pretty low in terms of just what it's looking like. A lot of these storms are going to be elevated, not surface-based, and it's a lot more difficult to get tornadoes with your storms when they are more elevated rather than the surface-based storms. But taking a look at our outlook here, it's just that little area across southern Minnesota where we see that 2% risk of tornadoes. So not a 0%, but it's on the lower side of things, but definitely can't rule it out quite yet. And then that wind risk across much of our area, that looks to be the bigger risk for a majority of these storms. And then we do have a slight hail risk as well, with the greater chance, once again, being across southern Minnesota where we could see a little bit more stronger storms. And the reason why I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of severe weather here in terms of across the St. Cloud, central Minnesota area is this is pulled off the NAM 3K computer guidance model. And it shows that, one, we have a capping inversion just above the surface here, which is basically a layer of warm, stable air, which is going to prevent really any sort of major severe weather. And we also see we only have right around 435 CAPE at the surface, which CAPE stands for convective available potential energy, or basically just the amount of energy that's in the atmospheres for storms to work with. And there's just not a whole lot of it. 435 might seem like a lot, but in reality, usually you need about 1,000 at least for a decent storm to happen. So we're lacking in some energy, and with the fact that we have that capping inversion in place, it's just really not a conducive environment here for severe weather, and our storms are going to be quite elevated. We see the LCL is fairly high up. It's about say 800 millibars, so it's pretty high up there in terms of where you'd want it to be to see severe weather. That's why any sort of storm we would get would be more of that hail threat or wind threat, and that tornado threat looking quite low, and our wind shear is a little messy, although it's fairly decent in terms of what you would want to see for severe weather. But nonetheless, it's not the greatest profile you've ever seen, and it's certainly not the most supportive of any sort of tornadic environment, and does definitely support, just with these stronger winds aloft, a little bit more of that hail threat if anything were to develop, because you need those stronger winds aloft to keep those hailstones up there bouncing around in the updraft until they're heavy enough to fall out. So what we're looking at for across the rest of the country is there's that 4 out of 5 moderate risk across parts of Missouri and into Illinois. That's going to be kind of the main thing here. And then, like I said, that continues into Saturday as well. Minnesota, we're out of that thunderstorm risk. It'll be just that wraparound snow chance, but still a pretty significant tornado outbreak possible across the southern parts of the U.S. So if you know anyone down there, make sure they're well prepared, and make sure to maybe keep them in their prayers, because they could have a pretty rough go at it this weekend. So in terms of kind of thunderstorm timing, what we're looking at here, this picks up around 21Z on Friday, and the timing just switched around in Zulu time as we changed out of daylight savings time or into it. I can't remember how it switches, but whatever way it was switched, we just changed it so it ends up adding an hour. So 21 Zulu is going to be right around that 4 o'clock time frame. So as we head into the evening hours, these storms aren't really going to pick up until the evening, and as we head into about 8-9 o'clock, we'll see those storms entering southern Minnesota. We'll see maybe a little bit of thunderstorms even as well. I still think that will be mostly just rain here across central Minnesota, as we are not going to have a whole lot of energy. And then by the time we head into about 1 a.m., by the time we head into about 7 a.m., we'll see a little bit of a clearing, but we'll see some more precipitation start to wrap around as the system departs out of here. So in terms of exactly what type of precipitation we're looking at, this once again picks up the same time frame as we head into the overnight. It'll be just rain here, as we're going to see those temps still well into those 50s and even into the 40s, and they don't really drop into the 30s until much later in the evening, almost Saturday night, before we see those temps here in St. Cloud at least drop into those 30s. So 12Z, which is going to be your 7 a.m. time frame here, still seeing that rain, a little bit of snow here. For I know Saturday morning here in St. Cloud, we do have a race going on for St. Patrick's Day. Good friend Noah running in that race, and could be a doozy of a time out there for him. Hopefully he doesn't take third place or whatever it was he did last year, but hopefully he'll overcome any sort of rain or snow, because it looks like it could be a little wet out there. And then as we head into those afternoon hours, that's when we see that cold air starting to get wrapped into our system here, and that will be allowing some snow to form on the backside, which is where we could pick a little bit of snow. And once again, good friend out in that goes to St. John's, David, he's going to see a little more snow than we will, so was able to give both those guys a shout out. Made sure that I would. So just a little bit of snow. I'm not expecting a whole lot. Going back to that National Weather Service graphic, most of that snow is going to be across far northwestern Minnesota here in St. Cloud once again. Only seen about an inch, so it's going to be a fairly impactful storm here. It's definitely going to be one that probably one of our strongest storms we're going to see, at least for March. And our active weather pattern looks to continue as we head throughout the rest of March. And then whether it's going to be rain, snow, still kind of up for debate. Just depends on what our temperatures are going to be. But regardless, looks like we will remain in a little bit more of that active weather pattern. But I don't think much of a severe weather risk looks very likely with the rest of these storms that are going to eventually work their way through. So for tomorrow and Saturday, just take it slow, especially if you're across northern Minnesota. Definitely picking up some much needed rainfall, as some very dry conditions already outbreaking across majority of Minnesota. A good chunk of Minnesota already in drought. So in terms of what we've seen the last couple summers, if it's anything like that, definitely could use this rain that we're already going to be getting here. So very helpful in terms of that. But otherwise, stay safe. Enjoy the weekend, especially tomorrow. It's going to be very nice out there, and have a fantastic rest of your night.